Hey guys, this is a Ragman task guide for So It Good Part 3. For this task, we do have to hand over two Zabralo 6B43 armors, one with a durability between 0 and 75, and then the other with a fresh car smell of 75 to 100%. So this task is going to be pretty annoying for most people, firstly due to the scarcity of these Zabralo armors, and then secondly because you almost always have to cheese or manipulate the armor that will require these 0 to 75% in one way or another, and it is going to be incredibly difficult for solo players. So firstly, I will talk about ways that you can get your hands on the armor. So you can get one Zabralo armor as a quest reward for completing the Punisher Part 1, and then another one for completing the Capturing Outpost quest, which you do unlock at level 42, but this is absolutely my least favorite quest in the game, so since it has been removed from the Kappa requirements, I just literally will never do this. However, that will totally be up to you guys on if you want to partake in this absolute camp fest or not. And I also wanted to mention for those of you who are Edge of Darkness Edition owners that you will be given a Zabralo as initial equipment when you do accept the quest The Good Times Part 1. However, anyone else who's not an EOD Edition owner is just basically shit out of luck. Now, your other options for obtaining the armor is going to be a barter trade at level 4 proper with 4 topographic survey maps and 2 phase control relays, or you can also get one from ref level 4 for 59 GP coins at the time that I'm making this video. However, at the moment, you cannot buy this item from the flea market. Now, you can also potentially loot it in your raids from a couple of different lootable containers, being from dead scavs, ground caches, 4x4 and 5x5 weapon boxes. Now, there is also the chance to loot a Zabralo from an airdrop crate if you happen to get one to actually land in your raid, and you do actually get the chance to loot it without being head eyes from a bush 100 meters away. And there are going to be 4 different types of crates that can drop in a game, being common, medical, supply, and weapon. And the crate that you will be looking for a Zabralo is going to be the common supply crate. Or you can always get it from the PMCs that you kill or find dead in your raids, with the most prominent location being factory because of the aforementioned EOD user-specific quest, where they will need to put on this armor and then obtain 10 PMC kills on factory. But not just because of this quest, some people do just like to go to factory and roleplay as walking tanks with this armor on and then try to bully people by bringing in their best kits, so sometimes you can just get lucky and then come across a gold mine of dead bodies. And there is also the chance that you can get a Zabralo from the Scav Boss guards of Sturman, Gluhar, Kaban, Rashala, and Sanitar. And typically, if you do end up getting it from these guards, then it will be damaged, so you will have a pretty good chance of being able to hand it directly in for your quest. Now, for this quest, I do usually set aside my Zabralo armor that I receive as a Punisher Part 1 reward, and then I use this for the 75 to 100% durability armor, but I definitely make sure that I remove the plates before handing it over to Ragman, otherwise I am going to be needlessly just donating very good plates for no benefit. And then I will just keep an eye out during all my raids right from the very beginning of a white phrase Zabralo that will fit the 0 to 75% version. So you are going to be looking for an armor with 260 points or less of the 350 points total of the base armor with no plates in it. And this will essentially be the soft armor portion of the Zabralo. And then again, if you do end up finding one with plates in it, you just want to make sure that you do remove the plates from the armor before you do hand it over to Ragman. So as mentioned earlier, your best chance of finding the 0 to 75% armor will be on factory, and if you do end up getting lucky and finding one, then you can just hand that over when you do get back to your stash. Or your other options for getting the armor below the threshold could be to load into a raid with a friend and have your Zabralo on, and because friendly fire is always enabled, then you can have your teammate intentionally shoot you in the armor to decrease its durability until your armor does meet the requirements for the quest. And typically we would end up going to factory for this since you almost always spawn close to an extract, but whatever map that you guys choose will be totally up to you. And even though you can do this with any ammo that you want, you really don't want your buddy to be lighting you up with 338 Lapua or SMB from NES just because if you do bring in that really high pin ammo, it will firstly be a waste of their good ammo. But secondly, you will also have to make sure that you do fully heal your thorax in between each shot, just because it will cut directly through the armor. So you will have to bring lots of heals, and this will also mean that you do have to take your time, because regardless of the ammo that you do bring, as the armor does get more and more damage, then the chance for a full pen regardless of the ammo that you use will also increase. And if you do get impatient, I have definitely been killed by a trigger-happy teammate in the past, so basically I'm just trying to prevent this from happening to you guys. So when I've done this quest in the past, I did try to hit a middle ground where I did bring in an ammo that can still kill other PMCs if they do try and push and interrupt what we're doing, but also one that won't one-tap my teammate's thorax if it does fully pen, so something like T45 in an SVD is something that I've used with success in the past. But again, just remember to bring in lots of heals for yourself or your teammate. Now, the actual best method to get this done is going to sound like a complete troll, but I did have a buddy load in and show me this trick, being to use the toy gun, or most people do call it the Blicky. So this gun does fire discs, and then it will have a magazine that will hold 20 discs at a single time, and each time that you do hit the armor with a disc, it will lower the durability by 1. And then every 10 discs that you do hit will injure your thorax by 1 point total. So this is by far going to be the safest and most consistent method to use for this quest. Now the drawback is that you cannot unload the magazine in raid, so you will have to actually bring in stacks of the discs themselves and not other magazines to replace it, and then you can just top load the magazine with the spare disc whenever you're empty. And this will have to happen over and over again until you do meet the 75% threshold. So because you do need to get the base armor with no armor plates down to 260 hit points from 350, that will be 90 shots total from the Blicky. And this will obviously be time consuming with having to top load the mag at least 3.5 times, or you could always just bring in 5 preloaded Blickies. But that will be totally up to you guys and how you approach this, since bringing in that many Blickies can get quite expensive since they are only guaranteed from the flea market and usually for around 40k each. Or there is also the barter trade at level 1 mechanic for 1 Tetris. But one caveat is that the mags and ammo are going to be cheap from level 1 mechanic. Now because this will obviously take some time to land 90 shots with a toy gun, and because the toy gun can be pretty loud to anyone in close proximity, it can attract other players. So because somebody might try and crab up and ambush you, my buddy also recommended to utilize a tripwire for safety. So for example, at the med tent door on factory, you can set up a tripwire at the first door and then open up the extract door with your factory extract key and then use the toy gun inside of here. This will give you time to hear your tripwire go off and then extract and save your armor if somebody does try to ruin your plans, since these armors can be a pain in the ass to find. And this is by far going to be the most effective way, but I do realize that some of you guys are solo players, so I have added a couple of different ways in this guide to help you guys out as well, with the first one being that you can use the map border snipers and then run out of bounds to have them shoot you. And then you can either try to return back and reset the sniper's aggro to have them shoot you a few more times before dying or extracting. And this will decrease the armor's durability in a much more efficient way, or you can just go ahead and let them finish you off further out of bounds each time instead of trying to get back in hopes that nobody will find your body and then have insurance return it. But just know that from my quick testing, this was not going to be a fast process, and it may be best if you only need a few points taken off to qualify the armor for the task. And just a side note is that Therapist does have the fastest return time for insurance, so just make sure that you do switch to her before loading into the raid so that you will get them back faster. Now you can also go into a raid and find a quiet area of the map and underhand a grenade to yourself and then just go stand next to it or lie on it so that it will kill you. This will damage your armor, but again, you will have to wait for the insurance return, and then it could take 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 attempts, which is obviously going to be very time consuming and annoying. And then another side note for this option is that the M67 grenade is likely going to be the best option since it does have the longer fuse time, which will allow you to get positioned appropriately on the nade, and I believe it also does more armor damage total. Now another option that I did see on Reddit, and probably the most promising one for a solo player, is to use the orange explosive canisters on a map like Customs, and then you do want to stand about 9 or 10 meters away and then shoot them, and then the blast radius will chip away and damage the armor. Now, even though they should not kill you, there is always the chance that it may, so definitely do this at your own risk. However, I did want to point out that I did bring in a Death Shadow Mask as an extra precaution for the explosion and shrapnel, but it was zeroed at the end of my testing in my raid. And while I was testing this, even though I did get quite injured sometimes, I'd never fully die from it. But I can definitely already feel the comments coming about how they stood the same place as I did, they shot the canisters the same way that I did, and they ended up being killed, and now it's my fault that they lost their Zabralo. But I just wanted to make it known that, guys, do this at your own risk. I'm not trying to lose anyone their armors. And if you are really nervous about this, then I recommend going into a practice or offline raid first to try and do this and then get the feel for it. Or you can also bring in a rangefinder like I did in this video to make sure that you are at least 9 meters away. And you also want to make sure that you definitely insure your armor with Therapist for this as well, and then hope that nobody finds your body if you do end up dying. But again, I am not trying to get anybody killed. I am just trying to find the most efficient way for you guys to get this task done. And if you guys do have any other methods to complete this task, feel free to leave them down below, as it may end up helping somebody else who is watching this video. And then when I do end up updating it in the future, then I can always add it to possibly help even more people. So hopefully you guys found this guide useful and it does help you to complete this task. Thank you guys for choosing to watch my guide on this, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.